All right, good evening and welcome to Wednesday Night Live presented by Pioneer Baptist Church. My name is Edmund Lugo and I'll be your host tonight. Hopefully you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube, and if you are, please let me know in the comment section. As is often the case, I have no clue what you see. I have no clue if it works right or anything else that's going on, so please let me know. So for instance, right now, what I'm saying, it seems really jumpy, and actually I even look on Facebook, and I only see the timer still up there. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, please let me know that you can hear me, you can see me, everything is going on good there. We're going to have a good time tonight. I always appreciate many of you joining in and getting ready to go. So I see Eric Kelly's here, Daniel Tucker's here, the Claytons are here. My family is always ready to go downstairs. Hope you've enjoyed the beautiful weather we've had the past couple of days and are taking advantage of that. And we'll continue to look forward to the month of May starting pretty soon, and a lot of fun things going on here in the summer months, and so we're excited about that. I don't know about you, I am. Okay, so Cassie said looks good so far. Daniel says video is a little choppy, but the audio is good. Okay, I can deal with that. I don't know what's going on here on this end with my computer, but hopefully I've done about everything that I can do. Even for you computer people out there, I doubled the RAM. I maxed it out in my computer. And so I also changed out my hard drive last year and doubled RAM this year. And so I'm not 100% sure what else I can really do to make the machine run much better. So maybe internet connection, who knows? It may just be, who knows. But beyond that, I hope if anything changes, audio or video goes a little sideways or crazy, let me know. We want to be able to try to get on top of it. We'll wait for a few more people to hop in here. Again, if you are jumping in both on Facebook or on YouTube, be sure to let us know. We want to hear from you. Let us know you're here, because again, every week this really only works as well as it can if you participate, and so we need you to participate. We need everybody to participate. Now, I will also say this, probably a lot like you, I am looking forward to sometime soon we can go back to in-person midweek stuff. I don't necessarily know that there's a whole lot of reasons that we should continue to do these things online, besides the fact that there is no, at least there hasn't been any great midweek locations like we've done in the past with small groups and other things. And so, Lord willing, if He sees fit to give us a church building, then we'll be able to use that there, and we want to do that. And so, again, just giving a few other people an opportunity to jump on. And I can see the number of viewers on both Facebook and YouTube. They're gradually getting higher. So if you just joined us, let us know. We want to know that stuff, and we want to be made aware of it, and want to be able to read and see your comments and all those kinds of things. I accidentally did something to YouTube that I didn't mean to do, so hopefully I'm getting my stream back here pretty soon, and I'll stop talking so that we can get to what is going on here this evening. All right. Every time that we jump in here, we always start with a couple of fun things that we want you guys to be a part of. And so the past couple of weeks, we have started with a Would You Rather, and we want your answers on the Would You Rather. As I was looking for a Would You Rather this week, it was kind of funny because started to run out of, I shouldn't say I'm running out of the good ones, but I am definitely having to take a little bit more time to find ones that work for our setting here. And so I found one, but I'll admit it's a little bit of an unusual one, and one that's going to take a little bit of thought. Like, you're going to have to think through it a little bit before you make a decision about your answer. But I would still be very, very interested to hear your answers. Right? Here it is. Here is the question, and I'll give you time to think about it, write down your answer. And as always, I love an explanation as to why you choose the one that you choose. So be sure to let me know that as well. Here is the would you rather question for tonight. Would you rather be unable to close any door once it's open, or be unable to open any door once it's closed? Would you rather be unable to close any door once it's open? Once it's open, it stays open. Okay? It cannot be closed any longer. Or unable to open any door once it's closed. Think about that one for a second. All right, good to see the Harts. Good to see the Millers. Hope you guys are doing well. And again, enjoying these beautiful days. Glad to have you guys joining us tonight. Take a minute, answer tonight's Would You Rather question and the reason behind your choice. I admit it, it's a little bit different than ones we've had in the past, but should be a fun one to think about here for a second, and I'll buy a little bit of time and wait for your answers. Would you rather be unable to close any door once it's open, or be unable to close any door once it's closed? I have an answer. So Gabe says he would rather be unable to close any door once it's open. So we have our first answer. Gabe's the first one that jumps out there. Gabe, let us know why. Again, it's always good to know why, to find out what people are thinking. I actually think that I agree with him for a couple of reasons. Sometimes I will accidentally close a door. And it would be awful if I accidentally close the door and go, oh, stink, I can never open that door again. That would not be good. I would not like for that to be the case. And so, I would always, I think most doors I'd want access to and through, and so obviously it would stink because then it's always open, and so like thinking about getting into your house, those kind of thing, the door's just always going to be open. Let's see, the Clayton say, I'd rather not be able to close a door after opening because you never specified how open the door is. It's true. Brittany says that. I never specified how wide the door has to be open. That's true. You could just crack it just a little bit, or you could just, once you slide in, as long as it's considered open, I guess. It's just got to be just a little bit there. Cassie says, I guess unable to close doors because I get stuck an awful lot of places if we're the other way around. That's true. You could potentially get stuck, which would not be much fun. So you don't want to get stuck anywhere. Let's see here. Daniel says, I'd rather be unable to close a door. Hard to go places if you can't open a door. I agree. I think close any door once it's open. Have to get into my pantry food. Word, Eric. That is so true. Right? So I'd rather not be able to close any door once it's open. It's open. It's open. I'll have access to it. And so most people say keep the doors open. If I can't close them, I'll figure something out. Gabe says I can have other people close the door later, but it would stink to have to wait. No, see, that door would never be able to close. It would just be open. Now it's open. It is what it is. Which, that actually brings up a worldwide question, right? It's like, well, I haven't opened that door yet, so why did that person get to decide for me? So I would say maybe every door is your choice. So, like, maybe I chose closed, but Gabe chose open or something like that. But that door would always be closed to me, but open to him. And it would never be the same. Like, I wouldn't be able to slip into his open door kind of thing. Let's see here. Somebody else says, I'd rather not be able to close the door. You can always place something in front of it. That's true. You can put up a curtain. You can put up other things. Maybe just like wood, like put wood up there and then take it down. So it looks like most of us are in agreement here that most of us would rather be unable to close the door once it's open. Can you think of a scenario where the other one might be better, or where the scenario might not work in your favor? What is the scenario where you think you'd rather be unable to open any door once it's closed? Like, I don't want to open that one anymore. It is what it is. I struggle, I guess, on that part of it. Like, which one? What would the advantages of that be? So if you're just joining us, that is today's Would You Rather question. Would you rather be unable to close any door once it's open, or be unable to open any door once it's closed? If you haven't answered yet, let us know. And if I happen to see it, we'll try to come back to it and get your answer. We're going to move on now to today's fact of the day. I should actually call these fact of the week, unless you guys are you're consuming facts of the day somewhere else other than at Pioneer Baptist Church's Wednesday Night Live. If you're consuming Facts of the Day somewhere else, then maybe this could say Fact of the Day. But if this is the only place you're getting them on the regular, then maybe I should change it to Fact of the Week. Because I admit I only give them to you on a weekly basis. But here is this week's Fact of the Week. Now, I'll admit, for a younger audience, this may mean nothing to you. For audiences under the age of maybe 30, this may hold no cultural relevance to you whatsoever. I mean, it might. That number 30 might be a little too high, but that might be about right. I'm not sure. But for others of you, this is a question that has been in our brains since our childhood, for decades, that finally has a scientific answer. Now, I know I've whet your appetite. Now you're dying to know, what is this important question that basically all of us have wondered and considered and debated and thought about and had put into our conscience. It has such cultural relevance to us that it may not for a younger generation. Here is, let's see, really quickly, before I get to it. Uh-oh, my video just went out, didn't it? Did video just go out? It looked like video just went out. If video went out, tell me. I'll wait for you guys, but it looks like video went out. And if video goes out, I'll just go to our computer camera, and but I was just leaning in to read. Azariah says, unable to close the door, otherwise I'd have to crawl through windows all the time. Now it looks like I have video back, so let me know if we have video back. If your video happened to go out, but it came back, if it keeps popping in and out, let me know, and we may just have to make a change here because it looks like video is popping in and out, and so I apologize for that. Especially right when we're at the fact of the day, and you don't know what the fact of the day is. And so video appears to be going in and out. So give me 1 second here, and I may transition to, let me see here. This will be a little bit of a different, all right. We may go with this camera for today because it doesn't seem to cause as many problems. And so it's not quite the angle that we always like to go with, but I think it'll have to make do for today. Lord willing, we'll be able to get that video back on. Let me know if it pops back in for you, and I'll give me just a second. So video's out, now it's back is what Eric says. If anybody else has an update on whether video is in or out, let me know. It might take just a minute. It looks like it's good on Facebook. I'm waiting. Somebody on YouTube confirm. I know Anita says video is back now, but that was, I think, before I changed it. So somebody give me a thumbs up that you're getting video now, but from a different source. Okay, good. Okay, so I think we're just going to go with this video angle for the rest of the night, just so we don't have any more problems with it, and because I'm sure you guys are dying to know what the fact of the day is. Don't worry, I have not gone away from the fact of the day. Here it is, okay? Ready? A licking machine made at Purdue University has discovered it takes, on average, 364 licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. There you go. Many of us grew up our whole lives seeing commercials between this little boy and this owl asking how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. And the owl would take about 3 or 4 licks and then bite into it and say, the world will never know, right? Well, now the world knows, because a licking machine, don't ask me. If you want to go look it up, Google it yourself. Who makes a licking machine? What does a licking machine look like? How do we know that it acts like a real human tongue? Is it an adult tongue, a teen tongue, a child's tongue? All of those kinds of things. Who knows? But a licking machine that was made at Purdue University discovers it takes, on average, 364 licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. Now The world knows. Azariah said he's never thought of it. Azariah, have you ever seen the commercial? Did you ever see the commercial growing up? Maybe, maybe not. Eric says that's kind of gross. What, the licking machine? Right. Who is it just this? Like, did they just buy like a cow tongue or something that just hangs there and it like. How does it continually produce saliva so that it's not a dry tongue? Just kind of hitting the. Who knows? I don't know. I actually have more questions about the licking machine than I do about the 364 licks to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop. Like now that they're done with it, now that they're done with the licking machine, or at least with this experiment with the licking machine, like what are their intents or their plans with the licking machine going forward? Like, what I mean, kind of scary to think what other kind of experiments you could run with the licking machine. Don't, please, in the comments, even though I like comments, don't give any suggestions. I don't really want to know what other kind of things you can do with the licking machine. But how many of you remember those? Azariah does not, and but maybe how many of you remember how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? I remember those all the time growing up. But now you know. So if you ever get one, you can try and see if that's accurate for you. 364. The whole point of the commercial, obviously, though, was that they're just so good that you just got to bite into them. That's true. Eric says now they can do jawbreakers. That's true. How long? Daniel says they could be sold to post offices to lick stamps. That's a good idea too. Very good idea. Anita has never saw the commercial. All right, is there anybody else that's seen that commercial besides me? I mean, did that commercial only get pumped into my house? Please tell me somebody else has seen that commercial before with this little boy and this owl that you see right here. Please tell me I'm not the only person. Please tell me that this is all just made up in my brain. I know it's not. So okay, so at least I have one confirmation there. The hearts are familiar with the commercial, so good. That's good to know. So all right. Let's see here. Adam chimes in and says he remembers it when he was a kid too. Good. All right. Wanted to make sure I wasn't losing my mind or anything like that. So that's good to know that we're good on that. All right. So there's the fact of the day, and you can test it out sometime on your own. Let's see here. Eric says he remembers it. Thought it was 3 licks, right? The owl would take it from the kid, and he'd go 1, 2, 3, and then he'd just bite into it. And then they'd say, the world will never know. Well, Purdue University's had enough of the world not knowing. So we're going to make a licking machine, and we're going to find out. There it is. All right. Moving on to the book of Ecclesiastes, Life Under the Sun, a study in Ecclesiastes. We are marching our way through the book here. Okay, the Claytons chime in and say they agree with the 3 licks. That what they believe that was what they would usually do. Okay, so I'm not losing my mind. I remember those commercials as well. I'm glad to hear that is the case. So that's good. We are now in the book of Ecclesiastes. We've gone through the first 9 chapters of the book of Ecclesiastes, and we started chapter 10 last week. And excuse me, by the way, if I look like I'm looking over the camera, that's because I am, because I'm so used to looking at this camera that's up here, but actually you guys are down here now, right there. And so I apologize for that. I'm just so used to looking right up here, my computer being here, but with the change of angle, I'll try to make up for it. But we are in Ecclesiastes chapter 10. Lord willing, we'll be able to finish that tonight. And then in the coming weeks, do chapter 11 and 12. Last week, we were just jumping into Ecclesiastes chapter 10, and we looked at the first 3 verses. And basically, the main takeaway from those first 3 verses was this thought or this idea that wise people stay away from folly. And in the rest of the chapter, he kind of gives some examples of people who don't do that, foolish people who do some really foolish things or say some foolish things. And so he's still dealing with wisdom and how important it is to life. And so that is what he's looking at here. He talked about this in verse 1. He said, dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking savor. So doth a little folly him that is in reputation for wisdom and honor. A wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart is at his left. Yea, also, when he that is a fool walketh by the way, his wisdom faileth him, and he saith to every one that he is a fool. Okay, a foolish person is known by their folly. People see their folly, but again, the whole point there was wise people stay away from folly. They try to avoid it, and it's compared to in verse 1 here, like just a little fly that gets into this ointment or to this perfume and changes the whole smell and acceptance of this ointment. He says, so doth a little folly. It doesn't have to be a big folly. Like a fly is little, just a little bit of folly. Him that is in reputation for wisdom and honor. So there's a real implorement to a real exhortation, a real challenge for us to be to to guard our testimonies, to guard wisdom and honor, to be very weary of even a little folly, a little foolishness that can ruin those things. We got to be really really careful with those things. And then what he does, and so that's just a recap of kind of chapter 10 that we looked at last week. What he does is he gives us, I think there's four of them. There's four examples of a foolish or a foolish person, or what a fool looks like, or how a fool acts, and he kind of gives them in three life situations that we're going to look at tonight. The first one that he refers to is a foolish ruler. Okay, a foolish ruler, a foolish king, a foolish, maybe in the United States of America, somebody that's like a foolish president. He says in verses 4 through 7, and we're going to read these. I want you to read them again yourself, because I'm going to ask some questions about it here in just a second. If the spirit of the ruler rise up against thee, leave not thy place, for yielding pacifieth great offenses. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and as an error which proceedeth from the ruler. Folly is set in great dignity, and rich sit in low place. I have seen servants upon horses, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. He talks really kind of this idea of a prince who is foolish in his rulership. He puts people in high places that shouldn't be, and he takes people that should be in high places and puts them in low places. It's almost like the whole thing is just all mixed up. President Lyndon B. Johnson one time said these words. He says, "A president's hardest task is not to do what is right, but to know what is right." Once you know it, you should be able to do it. But the hard part, he says, for a person that's in a place of authority, is to know this is the right thing to do. Then you should once you know it, you should do it. He says, but a president's hardest task is not to do what is right, but to know what is right. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to think about this and maybe answer it. Why is it? What are the factors that often play into what seems like? And by the way, again, so applicable to us. Turn on the TV, read the news, wherever that may be. Take in what's going on in the world, and it just seems like there's always somebody that's in a place of leadership, whether that's the president, or whether that's somebody in their cabinet, or whether that's somebody in the Senate, or whether it's somebody in Congress, or whatever, governors, places and positions, even in companies, that seem to be doing really foolish things that you go, well, did you think you wouldn't get caught? Do you think that people wouldn't notice? Do you think that people? Why is it that it seems? What do you think are some of the factors that play into what seems like people in high places making foolish decisions that get themselves in trouble? What are some things that you've noticed, or you think that are maybe common denominators in those things that lead to foolish decisions, especially people that are in places of authority? I'll wait for just a second to hear what you guys have to say. Because again, it seems like something that we maybe see a lot. I think I asked it this way: what is the issue with the foolish ruler? Like, um, even maybe you even see some of them here in verses 4 through 7. So Daniel talks about influence from peers, right? So that's certainly plays a part, right? So you gain a place of leadership, and then like all the relatives, all the friends, all the cousins come out of the woodwork and kind of want a piece of that. Not just of your success, but maybe a say in decisions that you make. Um, and so that certainly is an issue. Um, Anita talks just about selfishness, right? Um, and greed that are maybe I'm going to look at some other answers here. Selfish intentions, Emily says. Eric talks about pride or feeling untouchable, and I think let's see the George talks about feeling above the law. The hearts talk about sin darkening our understanding. Azariah talks about pride as well, and so you get into this place of position, right? And then pride comes in, and then when you can't do what you want to do, maybe you can become angry, you lose control, and the scary thing to think about is all of these people that are getting in trouble, they have lost control in that situation, and it makes you wonder. It's like, man, if these people can't control themselves, we're asking them to control the government. We're asking them to control our country. It's like what sometimes we're like, what are we thinking here? Like what is going on here? Um, and in the when you look at these things, right, allowing yourself to be influenced from peers, ignorance, pride, this feeling of not being touched, selfish intentions, greed. Um, I'm looking at some of these other. George talks about small sins becoming big sins that obviously have greater reach and more ability to really mess things up. What it comes down to, though, is a lot of times these things reveal a a lack of character. Um, and when it comes to things like influence from peers, it also maybe speaks a little bit to a lack of courage. It says no, that has the ability to look somebody, even a friend or an acquaintance or a confidant, in the face and say no. That's just not right. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. That's not right. And so when I was thinking about this, I began to wonder to myself, and I'd love to hear. I don't want to just focus on all of these negative issues, but I think this is a good question for all of us to ask. Obviously, I'm interested in it as a pastor, but I think we would all be interested in this as workers, as church members, as parents, as husbands, as wives. I mean, there's so many uh, aspects of life that the answer to this question can be insightful and helpful. And here is the question. On the flip side of that, what are some attributes that you believe make the best leaders? Okay. What are the attributes that you believe make some of the best leaders? We talked about some of these issues here, right? Um, some of these issues that they might have with pride or selfishness or um, you know some of these things that you guys have talked about, influence from the outside. Um, so what are some attributes that you would say these are some of the attributes that we need in place people that we put in places of leadership? um, I'd love to hear the answer to that question as well, because I think that's important. So Cassie mentions humility, right? Self-control, and so those are two big ones, and I think we would all agree with that. I think about this idea of self-control. Obviously, some of these things we just mentioned, they just didn't have any self-control. Um, I think Eric makes a great point. A lot of times, great leaders are also great followers. They're good followers, right? So I think about me as a pastor. I think about the words of Paul. Paul says, "Follow me as I follow Christ. So Paul is even exemplifying fellowship. Um, they can lead by example. Good leaders are thinking a few steps ahead, right? So it's not like they're constantly in crisis, constantly trying to work their way out of a difficulty. They thought a little bit ahead of that. The Claytons also mention humility. They bring up another one, the ability to learn from others, right? If we think we have all the answers, the only answers, there are no other good answers, um, you know, I think we're in for a rude awakening. I'm going to read some other ones here. The hearts mention a servant's heart, somebody that wants to serve others, to help others. Wisdom, right? Integrity. Anita mentions integrity, right? We want to follow people that are full of integrity and have proven themselves to be trustworthy. George mentions being close to God um, and, uh, and associating with those people who are close to God as well. So these are some good things for us to consider, right? If we want to lead in our workplace, lead in our families, lead in our church, these are things that we shouldn't just. And I want us to understand these aren't things that we just want our leaders to exemplify. This is something all of us in all of our places of life should desire to exemplify. We should all want to be humble, self controlled, servant hearted, wise, full of integrity, close to God, follow good followers, lead by example, thinking, forward thinking, able to learn. The Claytons mentioned willing to jump in and do the work, not just delegate it to other people. Loving, kind. Daniel mentions a selflessness, a willing to put themselves off to the side in order to help other people. These are all things again that we would certainly want in our leaders, but they're also things that we should all desire for ourselves. But the foolish rule, a foolish person puts all of those things to the side and thinks only about themselves. They're overcome with a lack of self control. They're just going to do what they want to do. They're full of pride and sinfulness, and that is what foolishness is. When I was thinking about this, there are two things that came to mind when I thought about attributes of a good leader or the best leader. I just combined them into two words: um, tough-minded and tender-hearted. And those two things are so important, but they're also difficult to have together because you can be tough-minded, and then what often happens if you're not careful is that permeates everything, and so you're tough-hearted, and then sometimes if you're so tender-hearted and your heart bleeds so easily um, that you allow it to affect your mind, um, and you sometimes get jerked around um, by your emotions. And so, good leaders are tough-minded. Things like we are just talking about just a minute ago, ability to learn from others, thinking a few steps ahead, but those kinds of things. But they're also tender-hearted. They're tender-hearted towards the people that God has given them to lead, and so those are some things that come to mind. And so we want to be these things. We don't want to be the foolish, selfish, self-centered, person. We want to be this person who's loving, kind, selfless, helping, humble, ability to learn, a good follower, leads by example, thinks ahead, is full of wisdom and self-control, servant-hearted, integrity, all of these kinds of things, right? The next person that he talks about, interestingly enough, is not the foolish ruler, but he also talks about the foolish worker. Now, I'm going to read these verses 8 through 11, and these are some of the most, uh, I almost want to say misunderstood, but like people oftentimes will read these verses and go, what is Solomon's point? Like, why is he giving? Why does he? Why? What is the point of all of these examples that he's given? So notice these examples he's given, and then I'm going to ask you a question, and I'll come back and read some of these answers, maybe that some of you put in. Um, He says, "He that diggeth a pit shall fall into it, and whoso breaketh an hedge, a serpent shall bite him. Whoso removeth stones shall be hurt therewith, and he that cleaveth wood shall be endangered thereby. If the iron be blunt, and he do not whet the edge, then must he put to more strength. But wisdom is profitable to direct. Surely the serpent will bite without enchantment, and a babbler is no better." Um, so he gives these examples of people that are laboring, right? He talks about, if you go back and look in these verses, he talks about somebody who's digging a pit, but then they fall into it. Somebody that's like removing a hedge, who's maybe cutting some shrubs, or they're moving a wall, and a snake comes out and bites them. He talks about the person who's cutting wood with a dull axe, and the labor that goes into that. He even starts talking about a snake charmer who gets bit by the snake, and all those kinds of things. And people look at this, and he goes, and this is the question, right? The question is what is the point? If we're reading Ecclesiastes chapter 8 or chapter 10, 8 through 11 together, what is Solomon's point for the examples that he gives? I see Terry and Michelle Hart chime in here as well. A leader is somebody. Good leaders are full of grace and truth, right? Grace and truth, two of them together, right? And so those are important things for the leader to have. But going back to this next one, this foolish worker. What is the point of these examples that Solomon gives us in verses 8 through 11? And it's really, you don't have to think too hard about it. I'm not saying there's some secret hidden in there that you've got to figure out to unlock the whole idea of what is being said. But as you read through these things, right? And we're talking about foolish people, right? How does a foolish person get to the point where they dig a pit and fall into it, or they remove a hedge and they get bit by a spider, or they're chopping wood and don't realize that that their axe is dull, and now they're doing twice the work? How do we get to that point? And what is the point of these examples? It's one thing to go, well, that guy's an idiot, and that guy's an idiot, and that guy's an idiot, and he did this dumb, and he did this dumb, and this. I don't think Solomon is just trying to point out just all the foolishness that people have done. Clayton's give a great answer here. One of the things that they didn't do was they didn't plan ahead, right? Maybe the guy that dug the hole and fell into it put the hole right where he normally walks and didn't plan ahead for that. Didn't put any signage there. Maybe the person who got bit by the snake didn't check under the hedge first, or check in the hedge first. Maybe the person who is doing twice the work, cutting with the dull axe, should have taken the time to sharpen the axe. Right? We've heard the idiom multiple times in our lives. Right? Work smarter, not harder. And instead, these people were making work a lot more difficult, when if they would have just taken some forethought, things would have been a lot easier. Daniel also mentions the lack of caution. And right, so even caution helps us to plan ahead, right? There's a lack of caution. They didn't check under the hedge. Some of these things are major safety issues that they just didn't even take the time to think about. Here's the deal, right? A foolish person is often presumptuous. I'm just going to dig this hole right here. I presume it's the right place to do it. We'll just do it here. I presume, or I suppose, there's no harm in taking down this hedge. I'm just going to... A foolish person often acts presumptuously. Okay? And what ends up happening is, because they lack wisdom, as Daniel talks about lacking caution here, they lack wisdom, that ends up getting them hurt and getting other people hurt. Um, yeah, and so what ends up going on here is these people are super presumptuous, and even following on the heels of the leadership that we talked about in verse 4 through 7, the hearts bring up a good point. There weren't somebody should have been in a place of leadership to help and say, hey, we should do this first. Let's check this. Let's check under the hedge first. Let's make sure we have everything ready to go for this or for that, for the chopping of the wood, or for the for the digging of this hole, or whatever the case may be. Instead, they just act presumptuously, with little forethought, with little wisdom, with little preparation, with little caution, and what it leads to is somebody that gets hurt. Foolish people are presumptuous, um, whereas wise people, um, they, as is mentioned here, they plan ahead. They take in the whole situation. They're prepared. Wise people work smarter, not harder. Again, that's not saying we shouldn't work hard. We certainly should. But a foolish person makes their work harder by not being prepared. And that can apply to all sorts of areas in life, not just labor. I mean, I think about that for all sorts of things. Everything we do, you should be prepared for it. You get ready. I've talked about this before for Sunday, for church, but this can be true of working on Mondays. Do you have any idea how helpful it is? One of the great things that I love that Cassie does is I can walk upstairs to the boys' room on Saturday nights before church, and they all have their church clothes hanging on their door, the shirt and their pants that they're going to wear for that day. It's already been chosen. She's prepared for it. This is what it's going to be. She has it all laid out. She has it ready to go. The boys know when they wake up, this is what they got to do. You got to get the clothes on. This is what you're going to wear. So here's your belt. Here's your pants. Here's your shirt. Here's your socks. Here's your shoes. Here's what you need to do. Usually she has them, shower or bathe on Saturday. So all the work is done ahead of time so that when Sunday morning comes, it's not craziness. It's all ready. And so we're ready to go. We know what the plan is for the next morning. We know how things have gone. And think about, I've often thought this about pastors' wives. Sunday mornings are really difficult on them because most of the time we're out of the house. Oftentimes I'm out of the house before even some of my kids are out of bed. And so Cassie's left here to get herself and 3 boys out the door, and then she's usually to Pioneer by 9:45, 9:30, something like that, setting up the nursery and getting ready to go. And some of that is just because she didn't presume, hey, we'll figure it out in the morning, or the boys will figure it out. No, there was forethought, there was planning headed to it. But the same thing goes for work tomorrow. Like, have it. Don't wonder, where's my coffee cup? Where's my favorite mug? Where are my keys? Where's my wallet? Where's this? Where's that? Like, have it all ready to go. Have a little bit of forethought into it. The same thing we do with anything else, with building a building, or working on a project. We want to make sure we have all of our tools lined up and everything ready to go. Why? Because we don't want to spend all of our work time, finding this tool or finding that tool or finding this thing we need or finding that thing we need. We lay it all out. And the same thing goes with our own work. Same thing goes with the raising of our families, like planning those things out. How we're going to do. Here's the end goal. We've talked about this on Saturday nights of training, right? That every product has a process, and so, like, what's that process look like? And just a little forethought, a little planning ahead, to get into that. I guess Eric, that was my point. Cassie is awesome. But she does a lot on those days, and so just a little bit of planning, just a little bit of forethought, so that we can work smarter and not harder. Next, he talks about the foolish talker, right? I'm going to read verses 12 through 15, and this is the question I'm going to ask. I don't have it on the screen here, But as we read verses 12 through 15, he uses some describers, some descriptive words about what a foolish person's speech or words are like. Some comparisons he makes for the foolish person. What kind of words does a foolish talker use? Look at verses 12 through 15. The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious. I think the heart mentioned being full of grace and truth not too long ago. The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool will swallow up himself. The beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is mischievous madness. A fool also is full of words. A man cannot tell what shall be, and what shall be after him. Who can tell him? The labor of the foolish wearieth every one of them, because he knoweth not how to go to the city. So here's the question when we read through some of these. How does he describe the words of a foolish person in these verses? What are, if you were to take these verses, and I would even say there's maybe a word that can be associated with each verse. A word for verse 12, a word for verse 13, a word for verse 14, a word for verse 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4 words. How would you describe the words of a foolish person? And by the way, we want to do this. This is a good exercise for us to go, okay, this is how a foolish person leads. I don't want to be a foolish leader like that. This is how a foolish person works. I don't want to be a worker like that. This is how a foolish person talks. I don't want to talk like that. And so this is a good exercise for us to do. So Daniel gets the very first one that I see in verse 12 is that he has destructive words. Right? Look at verse 12 again. He says the words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool will swallow him up. They'll eat him up. They're destructive words. Whereas on the flip side, a wise person, the Bible clearly says, the words of a wise man's mouth are gracious. And so it's a very simple, applicable question. What are my words? Are my words gracious towards other people? Are your words gracious to your husband, to your wife, to your coworkers, to your neighbors, to your fellow believers? Hey, boy is downstairs. Are your words gracious to your brothers? Or do they swallow him up? Are they destructive? A wise person will use gracious words. Make no doubt about it. Listen, I want to be careful here because we live in a world where people equate our words with violence, right? And I think we all understand that our words are different than if I were to walk up to you and punch you in the face. But I also want us to understand that our words do matter. And they can be hurtful, and they can be destructive. And the Bible even tells us that. In Proverbs chapter 25, Proverbs chapter 25 and verse 18, it says, a man that beareth false witness against his neighbor is a maul, and a sword, and a sharp arrow. I mean, think about that. Somebody that bears false witness. Somebody that lies about his neighbor. A man that beareth false witness against his neighbor is a maul and a sword and a sharp arrow. Those are tools of war and destruction. Okay, they're disastrous. We know James chapter 3 verses 5 through 8. Even so the tongue is a little member, boasteth great things. Beholdeth how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beast, and a bird, and a serpent, of things in the sea, is tamed, and hath tamed of mankind, but the tongue can no man tame. It's an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. What are your words? If they're destructive, the Bible says, if they're disastrous, the Bible says, those are the words of a fool. Verse 13, I'm looking at some other words that people here are thrown out. Angry, or hateful, deceptive. The word that I use for verse 13 is this, that they're unreasonable. Okay, look back at verse 13 with me here. It says, the beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is mischievous madness. Right? In other words, doesn't make any sense. Uh, I think it was one of the Claytons last week that brought up the saying, it's better to be thought a fool than to open one's mouth and remove all doubt. And I think that is applicable for this week as well, right? He says this guy opens his mouth and foolishness just comes flowing out, and when he's done, it's like, okay, I'm in mischievous madness. This is craziness. This guy is a fool. They're unreasonable. They don't make any sense. And so be careful, right? Um, the next word is uncontrolled. His words are uncontrolled. Look at verse 14. A fool also is full of words. A man cannot tell what shall be, and what shall be after him. Who can tell them? Right? They're just. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19, in the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. Just uncontrolled words. It's just talking, but getting nowhere. Not really doing anything. Not any. I mean, it's just. And I admit for myself, if there is one thing that there, and by the way, I'm just speaking to you as a guy, as a man, as a human, as your pastor. There are a lot of things that I probably just need to learn to say in a lot fewer words, and probably put a little bit more. We just talked about preparing on our work. Probably put a little bit more forethought into the words that I say, because when we just go off in uncontrolled talking, the Bible makes it very clear that that's where sin is bred. Again, it says, in the multitude of words, there wanteth not sin, right? It's like, it's going to be in there. The last one, verse 15, is this word that came to mind. It's boastful, okay? Boastful. Verse 15 says, the labor of the foolish wearieth every one of them, because he knoweth not how to go to the city. He wears everybody out, right? The funny thing, and here's the thing, because this may confuse some people. He says, because he knoweth not how to go to the city. In other words, he talks so much. He talks so much about himself, about how wonderful a person he is, how good he's at this, how great he's at that, but he misses his turn to the city. He's the guy driving in the car, talking about how awesome he is, and misses his turn. Oh, where am I? Oh, I think I'm and by the way, I missed a turn. We were out today, and I missed a turn today. But maybe you've been there before. He talks, basically, he talks so big, but he can't even find his way to the city. And in Bible times, much even like today, there are clear markers of how to get to major cities. But the idea here was that he was talking so much that he missed those very obvious markers. He was spending so much time boastful. And so the question we ask ourselves, right? Are my words destructive? Are my words unreasonable? Are my words uncontrolled? Are my words boastful? Those are the words of a foolish person. And we don't want those to be our words, okay? Then we come to the very last foolish person, and that is the foolish officer. We've got just a couple minutes here. The Bible says this. He says, woe to thee, O land, when the king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning. Blessed art thou, O land, when the king is the son of nobles, and the princes eat in due season, for strength, and not for drunkenness. By much slothfulness the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Curse not the king, no, not in thy thought, and curse not the rich in thy bedchamber. For a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which hath wings shall tell the matter. Again, so the question we ask ourselves is, what are the descriptive words that are used of this person? For sake of time, they got 6 minutes. I'm just going to run through a couple of them here. First of all, the Bible makes it clear that this person, and I gave you the wrong one, I wrote it down incorrectly. I said that they were indulgent. That's not the word. Oh no, that is the word I wanted. They're indulgent. Okay. Look at verses 16 and 17. Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child and the princes eat in the morning. Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of the nobles, and thy princes eat in due season, for strength and not for drunkenness. Again, woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning. They are indulgent, right? All they care about is indulging themselves. That's all they care about. Okay, is doing what they want to do. They're also incompetent. Look at verse 18. By much slothfulness the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through. Okay, they're so busy enjoying all that they have, enjoying taking in the food, enjoying all all the trappings of their position, that the whole organization falls apart, right? That everything is falling, or they're enjoying all the privileges, but they're ignoring responsibilities. There's a major issue. There's a sign of a fool is somebody who enjoys all the privileges that are afforded them, but they're ignoring all the responsibilities that are given them. And then on top of that, they're indifferent. They don't care, right? A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Eat all you can. Enjoy all you can. Get all you can. Whatever. And then the last one is they're indiscreet. They have their indiscretion. They use indiscretion. Look at verse 20. Curse not the king. That word curse means to make light of. Don't make light of the king. No, not in thy thought. And don't make light of the rich in thy bedchamber. Notice this phrase here. For a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which hath a wing shall tell the matter. Just a side note here, many people believe that this verse 20, is where the saying, "a little bird told me," comes from. We say that before. Oh, a little bird told me that this was happening. And many people believe that comes from this verse, where it says, "For a bird of the air shall carry the voice." In other words, don't think that what you say isn't going to come out, right? He was just talk here and talk there, and was very indiscreet about his speech, and so this person was foolish. As we come to the end of Ecclesiastes chapter 10, especially in conjunction with verses 9 and 10, this is the reality: death is unavoidable, life is unpredictable. So, live wisely and avoid folly. Death is unavoidable, life is unpredictable, so live wisely and avoid folly. Again, especially in chapter 1 and chapter 2, Solomon's asking the question, is life even worth living? What's the deal with life? At the end of this, as we're kind of coming down the home stretch, Solomon decides that yes, life is worth living. And as we've read through the chapters, we can clearly see that he believes it's worth living, and the best thing for us to do is to trust God, to do our work, accept what God sends us, enjoy each day, and live our lives for the glory of God. And after all that is said and done, all that is left for Solomon to do is to practically apply all of the wisdom and all of the thoughts that he shared over the first 10 chapters, to practically apply them. And that's exactly what he does in Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and chapter 12. Now that he's thought about these questions and kind of verbalized them in the first couple chapters and wrestled with them in these in-between chapters, he's now ready to come to some final conclusions about the whole matter. And what he's going to do in chapters 11 and 12 is he's going to start bringing together all the strands of all the thoughts that he's talked about, and he's going to show us what God expects of us with this wisdom and with these truths that he shares with us. And so I hope you'll join us in the next couple of weeks as we look at the practical applications of the book of Ecclesiastes, as we look at the last two chapters, Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and chapter 12. And I appreciate you guys jumping in and helping us here. And I look forward to jumping into that next week. But until then, I want to continue to encourage you to keep looking up. up. I don't know what's going on for you in your week this week, um, but I want to encourage you to keep looking up, keep looking to the Lord, keep your gaze up on the Lord. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His wonderful face, and the things of this earth will go strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. So I just want to take just a minute and say thank you guys again for joining us through the study of the book of Ecclesiastes, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next time. We'll talk to you later.